And these two cats, of course, are quite close by, no more than 500 meters, Andrew? Yeah. 500 meters away. They obviously have extremely sharp hearing, and they don't like each other. Well, mainly the lions don't like anyone else being around, any other predator being around them. And Ramey, you want to know, do I think that this leopard can hear those two lions mating? Absolutely, there's no question. But he knows the value of his spots and his ability to hide, and also his ability to nip up a tree if he has to. So he will know that they are there. But as long as he knows where they are, he's pretty safe. So, I mean, I don't think he's in any particular danger.
I think I can actually
you can actually see the lions. So we'll just show you. Excuse the you're going to see a bit of the technical equipment as Andrew shows you. As Andrew shows you the lion, but that's where they are. You can see them just beyond the aerial there. That's him there. And rather, you want to know if that isn't a dangerously close distance. No, it's not. You know, that lion will have no idea that the leopard's here. And the leopard is so fast that, I mean, they do get caught by lions every so often, but the lion certainly is not going to be looking for him. I wonder if he'd be kind enough to at least turn round to display his magnificent head to us. And that male lion I can see is frustratedly pacing up and down the junction, obviously hoping for a little more loving before the status quo returns. I tell you, to see two cats like this within this distance is a really special thing, and we kind of nonchalantly drove up here as if we do it every day. And if you happen to be a new viewer, just understand that this is an extremely special and rare thing for us to be seeing. And so while we're looking at this young male leopard, a year old, his father is a male leopard called Tingana. And Tingana is normally found a little bit to the west of where we are now, on Arethusa. And the other day Scott had a magnificent sighting of him having a vocal contretemps with the Anderson male. Now the Anderson male is a new young buck in the area. He's reputedly an enormous leopard. But basically every time you see a new male leopard, everybody tells you he's enormous until you actually see him. And we've just had a question from, just looking there carefully, question from California as to whether Tingana has been seen again, and he has not been seen since then, but I think he's around. You know, they had a territorial battle between two leopards, Crystal, very seldom results in a physical confrontation. Can, but normally they just lie next to each other and growl and threaten. But they very seldom actually have a box. He's gone, Andrew. They very seldom have an actual fight. So, yeah, I think Tingana will be fine. He'll probably be marking his territory fastidiously as we speak. So while we look at little, I think that's Sindila there. Andrew, do you agree?
I think so.
So Andrew and I think that's Sindila, and Rainer, you were asking, is that Shadow or Sindila? The only reason I say that, they're very similar size now, but the only reason I say that is because there's no notch. I don't see any notching in the ears, which Shadow has a bit of. And there's a tree Andrew's just showing you, not because he's particularly fond of that tree necessarily, but because we have a question just about whether or not he's able to climb a tree or not from where he is, and whether he's in danger. So he's up on that termite mound. The tree that you can see on the termite mound will not provide any kind of safety to him, I'm afraid. So Christy, you were worrying about whether he can find a tree that's close enough. The one on the termite mound will provide no safety at all, but there are a couple of these marula trees around that if he needed to rush up one, I mean, he could be from there up into this marula tree, I would say in less than 5 seconds. They're that fast. So I think he's okay. Now, this is a question that we get quite often. While Andrew's going to give a slightly different angle on things. We'll go back to the leopard now as soon as he picks his head up, if he does pick his head up. Tom, an interesting one. Will the lion be able to smell the leopard and perhaps vice versa? I'm in two minds as to how strongly these animals smell at all, the predators specifically. So, and I'll tell you why I think that. Something like a sable antelope, for example, when it gives birth, they will give birth in long grass, and apparently their calves have almost no scent at all, and that's in order to avoid them attracting the attentions of predators. Now, I struggle to believe that with all the evolutionary time that's gone past here, if some animals have evolved the strategy to minimize their scent to be seen, I struggle to believe that the animals to whom it would be most important not to be seen, for example the lions or the leopards, I struggle to believe that they wouldn't have evolved some sort of mechanism to mask their scent, or some sort of way not to have any scent at all. Perhaps that's why the cats clean themselves so fastidiously all the time, to make sure that they don't have a scent. It may well have some health reasons to it too, but maybe that's what it is. But certainly, when I know our human noses are not that powerful, but when we drive past dogs, wild dogs, they smell like wet dogs do at home. It's pungent smell. Hyenas tend to be a lot smellier as well, and I think that's because they're pack animals, perhaps. Or not pack animals, or clan animals. They live in a group. So I don't think leopards smell very strongly at all. Is it possible that the lions can smell him? I don't think so. I think they'll be attracted here straight away. Is it possible that he can smell them? It is possible. I don't know, though. I'm not sure that there's an obvious answer to that, Tom. Certainly yesterday was quite interesting. I was having this discussion with Scott while we were watching the cheetah, and we were sitting quite a long way away. And the interesting thing was that some impala looked up to where the cheetah were, and there's no ways they could see them. I mean, they were miles away. Well, not miles away, but they weren't visible. But they definitely picked up something. Now, was that a smell? Was it a bird alarm call that is unusual and that made them look up like that? Or was it because the wind wasn't blowing directly from them? So a lot of people will tell you that scent is a huge thing, and scent is a huge thing. Do they give off a strong smell to each other? I'm not convinced that they do. All right, he hasn't lifted his head at all yet. So we'll just have another quick look, and then maybe we'll head back to the lions. Or alternatively, I'll tell you what, everybody, you can tell me whether you want me to stay with this young leopard, or whether you'd like to go back to the lions and see what they're up to. Right, and while you're deciding whether you'd like some lion or some leopard, not that there's much leopard to see, we're going to go across to Scott and see what I think he's just exploring at the moment, looking around for things. Now Brent is doing the same. We'll pop across to Scott and get an update, and I'll see you just a little while.
Welcome back everyone, and such exciting stuff over on James's vehicle. The lion and leopard so close to one another, and I must say Brian and I are a little bit jealous, but the beauty of being out here is that there are so many different things to see, and this Battalier eagle looks like it's having a bit of a hard time finding a warm thermal. And that's why you can see it flapping. It's still because it's a little bit cool, and the warm thermals are yet to float the bird up in the sky. But that will happen a little bit later. This one's obviously hungry and eager to look for a meal. So, a lot of you would have noted that that was a male Battalier, and the way you can tell that is that half of the underwing is black and half is white. And they typically do fly quite low, lower than other scavenging birds like vultures, and they are often the first two kills made by various animals, and are a great indicator species for us to help lead us closer towards any action. Beautiful. As it warms up, it'll need to do a lot less flapping. But like I said, obviously it's very hungry, and that's why he decided to start his morning a little bit earlier than normal. Now, we did just swivel the vehicle around in order to get you those shots, so we're going to turn around again and continue east on Mumba Road. There were some male leopard tracks heading in this direction. In the excitement of the lion tracks that were found earlier by James and Brent, they didn't notice the leopard tracks in amongst them, and therefore a lot of those tracks have been driven over as the guys were following the lions, or the lion tracks. Hard to say which male it was, but a big male, it looked like to me. So we're just going to skirt through this area and see if we can't find any more tracks. Brian and myself weren't too sure what we should do this morning, so Brian suggested we slowly make our way past each dam. Waterhole here on Djuma. We've checked Treehouse and Twin Dam so far. Our next stop will be the Buffles Hook Waterhole, which is about 10 or 15 minutes away from here, and then we'll slowly loop back towards the Djuma Waterhole towards the end of the drive. And that way we've got a little bit of structure, or a plan you could say. But there's no exceptionally fresh tracks or any areas that are worth following up on just for the time being, but that could change. Well, very happy to hear that somebody's watching in Australia, and it's Maggie, who's all the way over there. And thanks so much for asking your question, Maggie, because if you didn't, I would have forgotten to give you a very good update. And Maggie was interested to know if the cheetah will continue to try hunt today, because they were unsuccessful yesterday. And yes, they have been followed by Craig up in Buffles Hook to the north of us this morning, and then I think Craig had left, but Abel was there and he saw them catch a duiker. So they've been successful. About 20 minutes ago I heard the radio call come through that those same 2 cheetah from yesterday successfully caught and killed a duiker. So that's good for them. They will get some extra sustenance from that. Between the 2 of them, it'll be a decent meal. And to be honest, for animals like cheetah who often have kills stolen, it will be almost make more sense to make smaller kills that they can finish up quickly with little chance of it being stolen by anything else, as anything bigger that takes them time to feed on will often be stolen by hyena, leopard or lion. Reversed a little bit too far, but I'm going to creep forward a little bit, and then we should be able to get some great views of these Nyala. It's quite nice to see. It's a young male at the back, and his coat is slowly beginning to become more chocolate brown in color. He would have been born in the summer months of last year, October, November or December. So approaching a year in age, and already slightly changing color. The males will become a dark chocolate brown, and the females will remain that red, rusty orange color. I'm just going to creep forward. They've moved out of view. Okay. Well, they sadly were behind some thick bushes, so we'll continue on for greater prospects. And curious one, you are very tuned in to the way my brain operates, and they've suggested doing one last riverbed drive before we head out and leave. And for those of you who are new to the show, I really love driving through the riverbed, the main riverbed here, the Mwati riverbed. Very peaceful and beautiful scenery with the big trees that line that bed, and quite nice because of the tire tracks that are already in the riverbed. You hardly have to steer, the vehicle follows the tracks almost like a railway. But curious one, I did try and do that earlier, but sadly the signal was no good. So I've already done the little riverbed drive, so I got my personal fix. Sadly, we couldn't involve you in that. Also, I mean, you are watching great things with James. But maybe we'll try again later on a different portion of the riverbed where the signal might be a little bit better. I'd love to do that, and thanks so much for making that suggestion. Like I said, I'll probably be arriving in Buffelshoek Waterhole in about 10 minutes or so. So, unless I bump into anything exciting along the way between now and there, I'll be sure to give you a call to show you the beautiful scenery when I do get there. But in the meantime, we will send you back to James and Sindile. I wish I was coming along, and we will see you a bit later.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Sorry for the slightly delayed response on your return. It was because the Game Drive radio exploded into my ear. I think my eardrum may have burst. Anyway, welcome back to Sindile. I'm just going to ask Andrew to do something quite interesting with the camera. Andrew, go ahead. Now what that's done, of course, is blow out the background completely. And by blow out, I mean totally overexpose it. But it just gives you an idea, firstly, of what the camera can do, and secondly, of what perhaps animals with slightly different eyes can see when they come past. So that just increases the contrast around the top of the termite mound. Now just go back to the auto setting. That's more about what Andrew and I are seeing with our eyes. And I just wonder if something that doesn't see more contrast, an animal like a lion perhaps, that sees in black and white, I wonder if they don't see something more like that. So that's quite a nice technique. Again, Andrew's suggestion. He seems to be really on fire, on top of his game today, is our Andrew. And you often see very beautiful wildlife photographs of that sort of idea, with a blown out background and lovely. You can make out his lovely colours. Golden coat of a young male leopard. Now, apparently the general consensus is that we should go back and see what the lions are doing. I don't think there are too many vehicles there, so we can definitely turn around. Oh, what's that on the road? Andrew? Sorry, there's something on the road in front of us.
Little duiker.
It is a duiker.
Or a steenbokkie.
No, it's a duiker, Andrew.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, steenbok's brown, half the size. You're doing so well today. Okay, so I think we'll leave little Cinderella over there. I'm just going to get a quick update on the radio to make sure that no one's coming here, and because I don't want to make it difficult for them to find. Are any stations making their way to this sighting on the termite mound on Triple M? Okay, I'm going to leave the sighting. Animal is still static on top of the termite mound. No response. Right, let's go and see what the lions are doing. We may come back here a little bit later and see how young Sindila is faring in this gorgeous, lovely, warming morning. Right, Andrew, a U-turn. In the Land Rover, that constitutes a 16-point maneuver because it has the same turning circle as the USS Abraham Lincoln. To form. If you see me fiddling with my ear, everybody, it's because my earpiece keeps popping out, and to take a game drive without the dulcet tones of Nicky Austin in my ear would be a trial too difficult to cope with. Nicky is going on leave today, and she will be replaced by the slightly American twang of Tara Dales this afternoon. So, Andrew, would you say about 600 meters?
Plus minus, give or take.
Give or take. 600 meters. Thank you, Andrew. So just while we drive down here, probably about 600 meters away, and a couple of lots of comments about how close the lions are to the leopard. And Eric in Idaho, you want to know if there isn't some danger. I don't think so. I think the leopard's very well aware of what's going on here because he can hear them when they are loving each other. And so I don't think there's any danger, no. Ngadlula. Ngadlula. Cancel. Sorry, I'm just asking if we can go past this chap. Sorry. So you saw her sit up there, which is not ideal, because what it means is that I've frightened her slightly, and we've had some questions about whether we are perhaps, or just about how we can be so close to this magnificent predator of Africa, and aren't we too close perhaps? No, not really. You know, these animals will react and tell us if we're too close, either by giving us a growl, but more likely in an open area like this by moving away. And these two lions just couldn't care less about us. So I did hit a little stick as we came in here, and that's why she sat up and looked at us, which isn't great. I always feel a bit bad when that happens. I like to make sure that we try and have as little impact on them as possible. But you can see the male didn't react even the slightest. His little pom-pom tail resting gently on resting gently on the road there. Sorry, I just have to, will you excuse me 1 second? I need to be on the radio. Go ahead. Okay, we're just going to move forward a little bit and try and get out of the way. See if we can't get a slightly better picture. Andrew, did you copy that?
Copy.
There we go, see them both now. All right, Andy?
All good.
Good. We don't spend a huge amount of time around male lions. We have in the last few days. We've been very lucky about that. But we don't tend to spend a huge amount of time with them because they do roam so widely. So it is wonderful to sit with a big fellow like this and just marvel at his size. I had a question earlier about the Anderson male, and it's so interesting. I've said this before, but whenever people see a male lion or a male leopard, we human beings tend to associate them with being large. Now, even if you've never seen a male lion before or a male leopard, the instant reaction, and I do it myself, despite all my time out here, is to say, wow, he's a big boy, you know, he's a big male leopard or he's a big male lion, despite the fact that we seldom see them next to each other, and so we don't really have a huge amount of reference as to whether they're big or they're small. And then with the lions, or the females, sorry, what we tend to do is to associate them with beauty almost straight away. So we see a female leopard or a female lion, and we say, that's a beautiful lioness, or that's a beautiful female leopard. And, well, they almost universally are. But again, it's not a sort of objective look at them. It's just a kind of immediate reaction, and I find it so interesting in our human psychology that's basically what we associate with the sort of feminine form of the animals out here, and the male form is we look for size and strength and power, and in the females we look for sort of beauty and elegance. And I think that's quite an interesting piece of our human psychology. I certainly do that myself. It's totally instinctual. Andrew has now disrobed and is now back on the camera. He's taken off about 7 layers of clothing. Now, I'd like to tell some sort of story about what I'm going to explain now, but it's difficult because their eyes are shut. Andrew, can you see their eyes are shut? And Tiens, you want to know from Margate, welcome, from Margate on the Natal coast of South Africa. Do their eyes have the same pupils as domestic cats? No, they don't. I mean, you can't see that now, of course. The big cats have round eyes, eye pupils, completely unlike domestic cats, which tend to have that sort of, you've referred to them as snake-like pupils. And yes, they do have sort of snake-like pupils, but not the big cats. So the lions and the leopards and cheetah don't have slit pupils.
Well, we've arrived at Buffelshoek Waterhole, and initially we thought there was nothing to be seen, but right in this northeastern corner there's a family of Inyala drinking. And you'll now be able to more clearly see how once males become older, this male looks about 2 years old, how much darker chocolate brown he is than the rusty coloured females. The wind's also picked up in the last 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm sure it will continue to do so. It's kind of been a set trend over the last few weeks. The months of July and August can be quite windy during the day. There's a sunbird calling very loudly. I can't see where it is, but that's the bird you can hear calling out. Well, at least I think it's a sunbird. I could be wrong. Just going to creep forward a little bit. I'm scanning around hoping to find this bird that we can hear calling, but I'm not having much luck. I love the way they wag their tails every few seconds, the Inyala. They've got incredibly big bushy tails compared to some of the other antelope out here. Great, well, they've disappeared. There doesn't seem to be too much at the waterhole, so we're going to send you back to James, and we will see you at the next waterhole.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Djuma and the lions, who have done absolutely nothing since I last saw you. And like I said earlier, I think that the mating period is starting to taper off. They've mated twice since we've been around, and not again. And the last time was probably, good, Andrew, 35 minutes ago? Yeah, so quite a while back. So I don't think they're doing a huge amount of mating anymore. So let's just give a quick summary. Perhaps you've just joined us, and you're most welcome, of course. And if you have just joined us, what we've been doing is watching this little pride, well, not pride, this little group of mating lions for the last little while, in fact for most of the morning, and they have been mating now for about a week, I think, for that long, and it just seems to be the frequency of the mating now seems to be tapering off. And so what's happened, as I say that, but she's just not that interested anymore. She is putting up with it. Now, the most amazing thing about that to me right now is how she's not reacting at all anymore. She's not turning around and taking a swat at him. She's just barely waking up and then going straight back to sleep. And I think that is a sign that things are starting to taper off now. It's still astonishing to see. And of course, a precarious time for her to be pregnant, because there's territory of this Matimba male and his coalition partner is certainly under threat from 5 marauding youngsters from the north. And so he, if she gets pregnant now, which she probably will after an extended period of mating like this, 110 days later there will be cubs. So that's 3 months. And then if they're to survive, they're going to have to survive another 12 months after that. So these males are going to have to hold this territory against those 5 marauders for at least another 15 months if the cubs from this conjugal meeting are to survive. Do you like that term, Andrew? Conjugal meeting.
It's a little bit of a big word for me, James.
Well, Andrew, your schooling wasn't quite as what it should have been. That's a really nice picture of them. They almost look cuddly, don't they, Andrew? Mm-hmm. It'd be quite nice to just go and snuggle up between the two of them into the mane of the big male. I don't think we'll try though. It's all the same to you.
Can be the middle spoon.
I've heard something. Lions do sleep very soundly, but it never ceases to amaze me how quickly they can wake up if they hear something or smell something on the wind. He is absolutely magnificent. He really is quite a lion, eh? Despite his little twitch. He's just lifting his head into the wind. Tiredness is starting to overwhelm him. Right, everybody, will you just excuse me 1 second? I just need to go back onto the radio. Lee Gutteridge, do you copy? I'm just going to direct somebody in here. Sorry, Lee Gutteridge, I was on the Arathusa channel. These animals are static at the junction Triple M Gari Main. 2 stations here, if you would like to make your way. Copy that. So, for those who perhaps don't know, the radio is a very important part of what we do out here. Obviously, it's quite a large area to explore in a short period of time. I really don't like that tautology. I mean, in a short period. And the radio does help us to tell each other what's going on. And while we've called Lee in, Lee often calls us in, and Lee operates on Djuma most of the time. He's got a little a training camp, which is quite a nice thing that he does. He trains people in bushcraft and various kinds of wilderness activities that they do out there, which is great. Oh.
So this is one of the Matumba males and the
Good, how are you? Sorry, that vehicle you can hear is a staff transport trying to get around the sighting. You can see a beautiful shot of the wind ruffling his golden mane. So we were just talking about the fact that she will give birth, assuming she's conceived, she will give birth in about 110 days from now. And Naomi, you want to know, how will he know? How will he know that they're his cubs? So, I mean, we talk about infanticide and the fact that strange males kill cubs. Naomi, I'm not sure that I know the exact answer to that. I think there's definitely a familiarity kind of from a sense of smell. They know if other males have been around, and they would know if other males had mated with her, because you've seen the process is not a short one. So it's not like a strange male could come in and do what he needed to do and then leave. So Naomi in Gauteng, which is the sort of economic hub of this part of the world, where Johannesburg and Pretoria are. I'm not sure how. Oh dear, here we go again. Round number 787. Just listen to that call. Oh, that's interesting. So I could see on his teeth there, as she was growling like that, he's got blood on his teeth. And that's obviously from the so-called love bites that he's giving her on the back of her neck. He's obviously managed to draw blood at some stage. But these are very unenthusiastic little efforts that both of them are putting in here. So back to Naomi and Gauteng. You want to know how does he know that they're young, that they're his? I think that there has something to do with the presence of other males. I also think there's a sense of kin recognition where there'll be a familiarity. In the same way that there's a familiarity about your family in terms of their smell, I'm pretty sure the cubs will have the same sort of familiarity about them to the male.
That is part of her way of selecting the fit offspring. Part of that. After mating, often vocalization of that word. And the male
Oh dear, the inhalation of dust has caused movement. And if you look at her now, she is quite skinny. I think she could do with a meal after the exertions of the past week. She's just going to find herself a fresh piece of road to lie down in. I just want to tell Lee that Sindile is just down the road there, so that he can maybe have a look. Lee, that cub, leopard cub, is just down the road on the crest there, on the termite mound to the left.
Down this road?
Yeah.
In the main access, isn't it?
Mm. You could theoretically, exactly, yeah.
How far down?
About 600 meters. There's a huge termite mound and he's just sitting on the top.
Clearly visible from the road?
Yeah.
I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. So Lee's just going to go and have a look and check if Sindile is there. I think she will. He's going to have to get pretty close to the lioness, but I think I don't think she'll react. So you had a question. There were some questions a little while ago about habituation to vehicles and about how close we can get and why we can get so close and that sort of thing. And quite interestingly, you've just seen Lee drive very close to that lioness, and Lola in Ohio. You want to know basically how do we get them so comfortable with vehicles. It depends very much on the animal. So lions, which are completely confident in themselves, they're the apex predator of the area apart from us, they tend to habituate pretty quickly, you know. And they tend to, sorry, Andrew made an odd grunt there, which distracted me slightly. They tend to habituate very quickly because they're confident. That said, if you see a lion for the first time, if it sees a vehicle for the first time, it will normally run from quite a distance, but they habituate pretty quickly, and especially in an area like this, these two lions have grown up around cars. So, I mean, he's probably about 10, maybe a bit younger, and she looks to be about 8 to me. And so, you know, they've grown up from very small cubs around vehicles because they've been through the Kruger and they've been in the Sabi Sands and around tourism and ecotourism for a long time. So they're used to it. Leopards take a little bit longer, but again, if they grow up around cars, they generally, as adults, will be completely habituated to vehicles. Now, the herbivores don't tend to ever habituate completely. They do a little bit, but you can never get close to them like you can to the cats or to the wild dogs or the hyenas. And elephants are my favorite sort of example of this. Elephants, you gain their trust. When they first see cars, they can be very nervous, and if you spend time, increasing amounts of time with them, they get used to you, and almost to the extent that they get used to individual vehicles and individual ranges. And I know some guides and rangers who, for some reason, have managed to irritate elephants, and they very seldom are able to get close to them, and others who immediately somehow gain the trust of elephants, and they sort of habituate carefully or more readily to them than others. So nice question, thank you for that, Lola. It's an important one because out here, if we couldn't habituate them, we just see the odd flash running through the bush, at high speed, or rushing towards us, which is not the best. So your picture's going to be disturbed slightly now by a chap coming past. I'm sorry about that. Lovely wind ruffling through his what looks to be a fairly salon quality mane. To quote Ron Burgundy. Just a quick look at the sky while the vehicle goes past us. Thank you for that, Andrew. Well done. The mating season, people often think about mating season, and certainly it's very seasonal for the herbivores like the impala and the wildebeest and the kudu even, but with lions it's not seasonal at all. So Sherry, your question about will the same male return to mate with her next year doesn't really apply to the cats. So they will mate very unseasonally any time of the year. There probably is a birth peak, I would suggest, probably towards the end of the winter time, but that's not necessarily common. And basically they will mate whenever they can. So any female that comes into estrus, the dominant male of the area will try and mate with her. And if he isn't mating with her, his coalition partner certainly will. So it's not a question of will they come back every year. There's no defined mating season, Sherry. And so the story of this lion sort of, I'm not going to say pride, remember the pride is the females and the babies. The story of the lion population, which isn't a very romantic word, but it is the right one to use here, is unfolding all the time, and it's quite interesting. I think it's fascinating, in fact, because there's going to be a huge amount of movement in the next little while, and a lot of it centered around Djuma, which is just fantastic for us to see. I think a few of you are wondering about that blood on his tooth. I don't know if we managed to see it.
I think so.
Andrew thinks he got it, so I don't know if maybe you saw it. It could be an injury from his gum, or it could be some blood from biting her. And you can, let's just, Andrew, can we try and get in tight on her, on her neck? Let's see if there are any bite marks there. You can definitely see where the fur has been ruffled, and he's been biting and chewing on the back of her neck there basically for the last 7 days. And so it wouldn't surprise me if he's broken the skin a few times, and if there's a bit of blood on his tooth from her neck. It could also be from his gum or the inside of his mouth, from where he wasn't quick enough, and she turned around and swatted him one. So that could well be a reason for why there's a bit of blood on his tooth. So I think not too long from now she'll rejoin the pride, and the 3 youngsters, probably sisters. Just amazing for them to be lying way out here in the open doing what they do. Voyeuristic lions that they are, without a care in the world. See the enormous nasal cavity there, which is not simply because he's got a big nose. The big bad wolf, or the Little Red Riding Hood story of the big bad wolf, is not entirely apocryphal. You know, these animals have enormous noses because they have incredibly powerful senses of smell, big ears, same reason, ear to hear, and of course amazing eyes for the night time. What's interesting is if you look at remember we had the cheetah yesterday. The cheetah we had yesterday had as an even bigger nasal cavity. It's probably almost the same size as that lion's, and that's because they need to inhale so much oxygen to maintain that incredible speed that they're able to. Their heart needs to beat so fast, and the muscles have to be oxygenated at such a rate for them to maintain that speed of 100 kilometers an hour when they're chasing. But they need a nasal cavity like that, to the extent that their canines are much shorter proportionately than a big lion like this, or even a leopard. Now, I've seen many male lions in my time, and very few of them as magnificent as this fellow. Often in this area their manes aren't nearly as full as this. So certainly the first male lions I ever knew out at Ngala, 4 young males which took over a territory. And the young males that I saw, when we first saw them, sorry, I'm just being a little bit distracted by the radio, I'll get right on to you now. The young males that I saw grew into magnificent big males like this, but one of them had a limp, a bit like the other Matimba male does, but much worse. I think he'd actually almost broke his hip as a youngster. And for 4.5 years, he walked around at the back of the coalition of 4 that managed to survive, and he became something of a favorite in the area because of his incredible ability to hang around. But he had a scraggly mane, a bit like Junior's, and Junior is the young male in another pride around here, and he had a very similar kind of look to him that Junior did, except he was obviously much older. And then the other big males grew into magnificent beasts like this, but this guy's mane is the second best mane I've ever seen. The first best was on one of the remarkable lions in Londolozi, and they were they were called the Sparta Pride, and they were the Sparta males. And these 2 fellows were about 15 years old. Now that for a lion is an exceptional age. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if those turned out to be the oldest lions on record in an area. Certainly before that, the oldest ever was a 16-year-old in Etosha, as far as I know. And there, the mane on those 15-year-old lions was much longer than this, and it was so long that they sort of lay down, the hair lay down on the back and over the eyes, almost like a sort of, one hates to say it, but almost like Justin Bieber's old haircut. And they had a much dark, but very dark, very black-maned lions. And those are the 2 best manes that I've ever seen. But this guy is pretty close, and if he manages to maintain his dominance in the area, he'll probably develop a beard as impressive as that. I remember being completely amazed when I first saw them. I was a very young ranger and I'd been invited to Londolozi to just go and have a quick look. And there these two huge lions were with their flowing manes. Totally iconic. And just on the subject of salon quality hair, we've had a number of comments about whether or not he should. It looks like he's had a brush and he could probably do some adverts for L'Oreal and various other hair product places. I think they'll be queuing up to try and get a look in on hair like that. I wouldn't like to be the hairdresser who had to try and wash that hair, however. I think that might be an uncomfortable experience. Alright, we're going to go across to Scott now and see what he's doing. These two lions are doing, well, nothing. And Scott will give you an update as to what he's been doing. I know he's been tracking something. So let's go across to him and I'll see you in just a little while. Let's go to some leader.
Well, sadly my little tracking expedition did not amount to anything. It was merely just taking a chance walking through an area that's very thick and difficult to get to with a vehicle, where a female leopard, in all likelihood Karula, was seen yesterday afternoon very full-bellied. And my theory behind going for the little walk was that because she was full-bellied, there was no surety that she has actually finished her kill. And my thought was that she just came to the Gallagher waterhole for a drink, and that's where she was seen by some of the housekeepers, actually, as the guests were out of camp and the place was being tidied up, and the housekeepers called in the leopard. And a few people managed to get there. I know Jamie rushed into that area, but she was a bit late. The leopard could still be around there, but not according to any signs that I saw walking through that area. I also saw footprints of Brent. He had said he was going to try his luck as well, and he obviously also walked through that area, but hasn't updated us with anything useful. So we've just got one last waterhole to tick off, and that's the Djuma waterhole. And we did drive past it a little bit earlier, and there was just one Nyala going down for a drink, so we thought we'd continue. Maybe there'll be more action there by the time we get there. And we're just going past where we started the sunrise safari with that wonderful sighting of the giraffe and the sunrise. I wonder where they've gone from here. During that wonderful sighting, I did take a few photographs, which you would have heard snapping away. And Joyce in Mount Rainier. Now, I have no idea where Mount Rainier is, Joyce. So if you don't mind letting us know where that is exactly, that would be great. And Joyce has asked if I could show you some of the photographs. Well, the best way to do that, Joyce, would be to have a look on my Facebook page, Scott Dyson Safaris, or on Instagram, Scotty D Safari, as I put all my pictures up on there. I haven't been doing too well lately photographically, and therefore have not been uploading many pics. But what I can do is, once we find a shady spot, I'll pull out my camera and show you a few snaps of the giraffe from this morning. They came out fairly decently, I think. good news is there's a patch of shade as well as a lone gnu. So we'll stop here. Brian can show you the wildebeest while I get the camera out. So a lone bull, not uncommon to see them all on their own. But there is a herd that is evidently moving through this area, and we do see it from time to time. So maybe he's just holding the fort for them. Ah, have you got an itchy head? Awesome. And I'm told you've got a great close-up view of this big bull. He looks like he's in great condition. Yeah, they are such bizarre looking animals, but uniquely pretty, I guess you could say. I love their brindled coats. And look at how his long mane is draping back over his back. Well, not anymore because he's turned around. It's draped over onto his left-hand side. Little scraggly beard. Okay, Joyce, well, I've got a picture ready for you now, and I'm sure it's going to be fairly similar to a lot of your wonderful screenshots that I'm told were taken this morning. Is he going to have a dust bath? We'll watch closely. He could just be getting ready for a toilet break. What is your next move going to be, Mr. Gnu? I've just heard an update on the radio. Just need to listen closely and ask Ephraim exactly what's going on. It's an update. All I heard was Mvula, which is a big male leopard. So let me just ask Ephraim now where exactly he is. I think it could be on Buffelshoek, but it still would be nice to know where he is, even if we can't go there. Ephraim, confirm Mvula's on Buffelshoek. Well, everyone responded at once there, so I got a jumble of 3 different people's answers, but that's good enough. Okay, copy, thanks. It sounds like he's on Torchwood, which is to the east of us, but who knows, maybe this afternoon Brent or Jamie or James, whoever heads out, will get lucky. So good prospects. He's not far from our eastern boundary. And Joyce, here's one little pic of the giraffe that you requested to see. And wasn't it a magical way to start off the safari this morning? It was probably, oh, it was probably the highlight for me. Since then, things have quietened down a bit on our vehicle, but thankfully James has been in the right spot. Okay, well, there's a little photographic tour, Joyce, and let's continue now and see what else is going to be happening. Probably down at the waterhole will be our next stop. And after the waterhole, I will be heading to Hoedspruit, the nearest town, and then Cape Town, which is a wonderful city. If you've never been to South Africa and are ever planning a trip here, try and make some time to be in Cape Town, especially if you are here over our summer months, as the weather in winter can be a little bit wet and rainy and windy, but it still is a magical city. A lot of wilderness in and around the Cape. There's the massive Table Mountain, which the whole city basically envelops, and you've got this wonderful wilderness where you can go hiking up on the mountain and see a little bit of wildlife. There's not too much. You do see caracal from time to time, or a lynx, which is an awesome cat. I can actually show you one. They do occur here. I've never seen one in the Sabi Sands, but they are here. Take a look at this awesome cat. It's not the best picture of it, but they've got these awesome tufts of fur that grow off their ears, and they've got short tails, almost as if they've been docked. They're also known as a lynx, but that can be a little bit misleading because there's many different types of lynx around the world. So caracal is probably a better term for this specific one. And you get those up on Table Mountain: porcupine, rock hyraxes, the chukma baboon, and quite a lot of bird life, but beautiful vegetation called fynbos, lots of protea flowers. Okay. Basically though, it's a city with a lot of great wilderness on its doorstep, which is what I love about it. Well, thanks very much for all your kind words, and thanks for me sharing the few photographs I did with you. And Kevin is asking to see a picture of a fish, and I'm going to have to ask Jean-Andre to pull that out. He's the only one with that footage that we need to get a screenshot out of. So sorry I can't show you any pictures of the fish that I wrangled with my bare hands the other day. It was a lot of fun, but we won't be doing too much more of that. As much fun as it is, we don't want to distress the animals and cause them any unnecessary hardships. And I guess catching those fish on a once-off occasion is kind of okay, but we're not going to be doing that again, because it's better for us to leave the animals in peace, and that way we can just look at them. I guess it's a little bit tricky with fish, because we'd have to be scuba diving in order to show them to you without touching them. And in the murky, muddy waters of the Sabi Sands, that is never going to work. back to the updates on Mvula earlier. He's to the east of us, which is his typical territory. He has always stretched further east of us and further north of us. And Ramey, good to have you with us, has just asked, do we think he's been completely pushed out of his territory? No, I don't. I think he's still holding on to a lot of Djuma, and him and Tingana for the time being are just overlapping on Djuma, but it's by no means over and done with the battle between him and Tingana and Anderson. I think there's still a lot to play out there, and I'm fairly confident we will be seeing Mvula back on Djuma over the coming months. I'm almost certain that he's not gone for good. So we will shortly be at the Djuma waterhole, and let's hope there's something there. I wonder where the saddle-billed storks have gone. I haven't seen them for a while now, so maybe they've found a easier hunting ground elsewhere where they are not getting their kills poached by the African fish eagle, which is a problem I think they're encountering here. Hang on, am I getting confused here? Am I getting confused? I think I may be. There's a bird called a prinia, and I'm just need to make sure that I'm not getting... Oh, I was wrong. Okay, let me redeem myself here. That was a tawny flanked prinia, and apologies for that misidentification. Very long tail. I guess it's remotely similar looking to the rattling testicular. Oh, awesome, that's the one I wanted you to see, the one with no tail, which you can see hopping about now. And it's called a long-billed crombeck. Well done, Brian. That was the one that I was hoping to actually show you. So well done to Brian for following it, and I'll find that picture for you in the book as well. I've got the rattling testicular and tawny flank prinia already lined up, and they're just searching for tiny little insects that they're feeding on, and they typically move in little bird parties. It's not uncommon for birds to move around together where there may be a hatching of sorts, and I guess... Okay, we need to send you over to James quickly.
So he's looking for insects or what?
Yeah. Hello everybody, welcome back. While you were doing a bird party with Scott, we've got a, well, not a bird party so much as but just a bird hanging about the place really. That is a not a long-billed anything, it is a green-backed wood hoopoo. A green wood hoopoo, sorry, used to be known as the red-billed wood hoopoo, which is a much better name for it, I feel. And what he's doing, Andrew, follow him, don't lose him, there we go. What he's doing is searching for insects, and that beak is pretty good at getting nectar from flowers, and then actually it's more a probing beak, so they probe underneath the bark of trees to try and pull out grubs and little insects that might be there, and that's what he's doing now. And as I've said a few times, it's a difficult time of the year for them because there's not a huge amount in the way of invertebrate life knocking about the place, and that of course is why half the birds here just disappear overseas for the course of the winter. And that's him calling there. They're known in sort of in Zulu as mahlega bafazi, and guhlega is to laugh, and abafazi are women, and when you hear them calling together you can see why they get that name. Mahlekabafazi means the laughing or cackling women, and that's what they sound like when they call. I wonder where the rest of his flock seems to be grabbing some kind of insect out of the tree. I'm just going to try and retrieve my binoculars from beneath my pile of clothing. I can't see what he's getting. But that beak is very good at probing beneath the surface of the bark. And now he's just looking, he's a magnificent looking bird, isn't he? But they're normally in flocks, and so I'm not sure where the rest of his flock is. There are a couple of long-tailed shrikes flitting about the place. Maybe he's confused himself and that's what he thinks he is. Anyway, that was the green wood hoopoo. There he is. Alright, so we'll quickly go back to Scott's bird party so that you can see what else there is, and I'll continue on my merry way. See you just now.
Welcome back, and we're still here with the bird party, and very happy that we rushed you off to James to see the green wood hoopoo. They are such awesome birds, as are so many of them. Sadly, a lot of them are too small and too skittish and nervous for us to show you very often. But we certainly do try, and we will continue to keep notching up the amount of birds that a lot of you have on your bird lists. And if you haven't started yet, we have got spies all over the world making sure that everyone is doing their bird list, and if you don't, your connection to Safari Live will be cut off. So be sure to start if you haven't already. And it is such a great way just to keep track of how many birds you've seen and how many birds you begin to learn and know out here. This Birchall starling really is showing off, although it needs to get into perfect sunlight for those feathers to iridesce, and it's just disappeared behind a tree. And let's maybe have a quick look in the book while it continues to lurk in the shadows, although what's its next move going to be? Hard to say. Let's wait until it take a few more steps into the sunlight. There we go, look at that. Okay, well, I've got the long-billed crombeck in the book here. It's quite an easy bird to distinguish from others because, as you would have seen, it didn't really have a tail. And it's got this rufous belly, and the fact that it's got a very, very short tail or non-existent tail makes it quite easy to identify. So that was the long-billed crombeck, the one that I was hoping to show you, that Brian thankfully found you. Then I'm going to flip over quickly to the rattling cisticola, which I unacceptably misidentified when I called the tawny flanked prinia, the individual that we first saw with that very long tail. So that was two birds that you could hopefully add to your list, some of you. Good. So we're just going to pop up onto the dam wall and see what's going on here. I can see a few nyala. It look like they may be heading down for a drink, or maybe we will find the guinea fowl that Suzanne alerted us about. we've just had a funny comment sent through from X-Ranga saying that the animals are frustrated that I'm going off on holiday, yet they have to stay here and continue working, and that is why they have decided to take the morning off and make me work all alone with no help from them. So thanks for sending through that humorous comment, X-Ranga. And let's take a closer look. There are some Inyala making their way towards us, but I'm not convinced they are going to drink at the main waterhole. Got the lodge in the background there, the Vuyatela camp. And there's a small waterhole just up to their left that water is pumped into, and they may be leaning towards going there for a drink, but only time will tell. And I was mentioning earlier how wonderful Cape Town is with the surrounding mountains that you can go hiking on, and Anna Marie has just asked if Nikki and I will be doing any hiking, and we certainly will. I've got a friend of mine coming out from Kenya who I haven't seen since I left there this time last year. Look forward to taking him on a few trails up on Table Mountain, as well as a few adventures in my hometown around Durban. Well, such beautiful antelope, the Inyala. Great to see them in these open clearings from time to time, because they are so very often in thick bush. Well, sadly, folks, I am having to now say goodbye to all of you and the animals here. It's bittersweet, obviously great to be going on leave, looking forward to seeing friends and family, but to be leaving a place as wonderful like as this, and to be leaving you all behind, is a little bit sad. So what can you do? I'm sure James and Jamie and Brent are going to do a good job of taking you guys all on some wonderful safaris over the next couple of weeks. And you can also look forward to Steph possibly leading a few drives during that period. So there's a few changes which you can all look forward to. But thanks so much for all your help, comments, questions and support following the show. And a big thanks to Brian on camera, and to Nikki and Lou in the final control. We are going to say goodbye and send you back to James. We will see you all in 2 weeks.
Hello everybody, welcome back to, well, not Jiga so much as this magnificent Balanites Magami tree or torchwood. Now you may ask yourself, and well you might, why I am sitting in this tree. Well, there's a very good reason for it. The reason is that it is Nikki Austin's favourite tree, of course, and Nikki Austin and Scott are going on leave today, so I'd like to thank them both very much for their contribution over the last little while. And so I thought I'd climb Nikki's favourite tree for her and attempt not to fall out of it. It's been a particularly wonderful morning, beautiful lions, lovely Sandila, and Scott's found some very interesting smaller things. Thank you to Andrew on the camera, thank you to Nikki and Louise in the final control, which is our major control room, and of course to Scott and Brian on the other vehicle. Wonderful to have all of your questions and your comments. Thank you for them. We appreciate them all the time. It's been a wonderful morning, and we will see you later on this afternoon. It will be me and probably the inimitable Brent Leo Smith. So from a sunny, wonderful winter South Africa, we'll see you later on. Thank you very much.